Today we are going to be making homemade baked mac and cheese, and I'm very excited. Make sure you start by preheating your oven to 350 degrees so that it's hot by the time we get to the baking portion. So I have my water going. It's actually starting to boil pretty quickly, but I'm going to salt it. I have 2 teaspoons of salt. Always salt your water when you're cooking any kind of pasta. It might seem like it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary step, but it really helps elevate the taste of the noodles, which kind of sounds crazy, but it really works. So I'm just going to give it a stir. I have a half a stick of butter, 4 tablespoons, and I'm going to let that melt in the pan. We're going to start by making a roux. A roux is a butter-flour mixture. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, and it's used to thicken soups and sauces, anything kind of like that. It might take a minute to heat up. You want to make sure you keep an eye on your butter. If it starts getting to the point where it's all melted and it's sort of like a boiling butter, so the flour and butter ratio is a 1-to-1, so I have 4 tablespoons of butter and 4 tablespoons of flour. You're going to need 1 pound of pasta, which is 16 ounces or 2 cups. And then you want to turn it down a little bit when you add your flour so that all the liquid doesn't evaporate. Shake it in, and then you're also going to add your salt, 1 teaspoon of salt, and just stir it. Then I'm going to transfer over to a whisk. And I'm going to pour in half my milk. And I have 2 cups of milk. And I'm just going to let that thicken up first. And I'm going to dump in my pasta. I have a little extra salt. It looked like more than a teaspoon, so I'm just going to pour it in here. It'll be okay. And I'm going to pour in my pasta. I'm using little elbows, but you can use whatever you like. And make sure you stir it right away so it doesn't stick to itself. Otherwise you'll have little clumps of pasta. And this will take about 7 to 9 minutes for that. So kind of just let it go. And our oven is done preheating. You're going to need a 2-quart pan for your pasta. I'll show what that looks like. A square, like an 8-inch cake pan would also work. And that is all greased up, just to try to prevent some sticking. So all of our roux has almost been dissolved, so I'm just going to add the other half of milk and kind of let it sit and thicken up. It'll take a little bit of time. I have a half a cup of breadcrumbs. I'm using just Italian breadcrumbs. It's just what we had. You can use whatever kind of breadcrumbs you want, or you could probably make them. If you toast some bread and kind of grind it up in a food processor, that'd probably work too. And then I have 4 tablespoons of butter, roughly. And you're just going to stir it till it starts to clump up a little bit. Turns into a nice fun mixture. So just until it starts to look like a crumbly pie crust topping, then you know it's ready. I'll set that aside. Take another look at my pasta. Then I'm going to stir my sauce, make sure it doesn't burn. Turn up my heat a little bit. Low and slow. Our sauce is actually getting pretty thick. I'm going to add in our cheese. I have 2 cups of sharp cheddar, but you can use whatever cheese you have at your house. It might just fall in. I just used my KitchenAid attachment and shredded it. You don't have to have it shredded. You can have tiny pieces. That also works. And it'll all melt together. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so it doesn't burn. And you'll get a nice, rich, and creamy cheese sauce. Multitasking. like that. This looks delicious. Now I'm going to put my breadcrumbs on top. Give them a little stir. And just give them a little shake. My favorite pieces are like the edges and the corners because they bake up against the pan and they get a little crispy. Make sure you use all your topping if you want. I do. I like that this adds texture, so it's not just creamy, it also has a little crunch to it. Just like that. That looks delicious. This is the before. You can kind of see all the layers of pasta underneath and then the breadcrumbs on top. This is going to go in the oven at 350 degrees for 15 minutes or until the top starts to get all crumbly and delicious and crunchy and the edges start to bubble. Bye everybody!